shining, come on, get happy. The Lord is waiting to take your hand. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. We're going to the promised land. We're heading across the river, wash your sins away in the tide. It's all so peaceful on the other side. Forget your troubles, come on, get happy. You better chase all your cares away. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day. Forget your troubles, come on, get happy. Chase your cares away. Hallelujah, get happy before the judgment day. The sun is shining, come on, get happy. The Lord is waiting to take your hand. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. We're gonna be going to the promised land. We're heading across the river, wash your sins away in the tide. It's quiet and peaceful on the other side. Forget your troubles, get happy, your cares fly away. Shout hallelujah, get happy, get ready for your judgment day. Come on, get happy, take your cares away. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy, get ready for the judgment day. Sun is shining, come on, get happy. Lord is waiting to take your hand. Hallelujah, come on, get happy. We're going to the promised land. Heading across the river, all sins away in the tide. It's all so peaceful on the other side. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. You better chase all your cares away. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready for the judgment day.
Good afternoon. I'm Baz Macmillan. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to our celebration for our very dear James Laurie. And we begin this afternoon by acknowledging that the Athenaeum operates on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We acknowledge them as the traditional owners of these lands, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. So, welcome. Welcome, 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 friends. How do we say anything about our Jamie? Well, I'll start by saying that, as you all know very well, James was not a man to leave unfinished business. You could say. So it won't come as any surprise to anybody that today's celebration is all of Jamie's devising. He designed the program, chose the music, chose the songs, did the casting, and let there be no mucking about with anything. So, he told me, I told you, you told everybody else, and here we all are, mighty well told. And let me just say, if I seem to be shifting any kind of responsibility, I am. Now, I mean, seriously, when I was thinking about this, where do you start without Jamie? How do you start with this enchanting kaleidoscope of a man? So many qualities, so many talents and interests, quirks, oddities, abhorrences, and the best playmate ever, wasn't he? Absolutely the best playmate, so much fun. Too much sometimes, you know. Hangover central, oh God. And so easy to be with, wasn't he? I mean, we talk about anything, everything. We'd argue, we'd bicker, we'd share. Always interested, curious, amazingly knowledgeable. He saw everything, read everything, had an opinion on everything. And his talk was entertaining and rich and stimulating. trained, of course, at NIDA, very good actor, and found a unique life in the arts. His love of the theatre, his love of music, writers, designers, dance, every art form he loved, and he was very knowledgeable. And as a self-important critic, he took no prisoners, really. How do you forget? Sometimes I'd get the most extraordinary weird phone calls. You answer the phone and there's a very odd voice you've never heard before would say, "Last night, your critic was subjected to," whatever horror might have been. If it had a good time, it was a rave review. If it had a bad time, it was something so scurrilous and hilarious that it was so Jamie. It was so Jamie. And it was probably actionable. All his sophistications, and he was a very sophisticated man, taste and excitement and interest. For all that sophistication, he could also be the silliest person on the planet. I mean, really, couldn't he? And it was one of his most lovable. I loved that silly aspect of Jamie. We laughed so much sometimes, we literally laughed ourselves sick. He could also make me crosser than anybody on the planet. And we'd frequently wind up in the doghouse, one or other of us committing some crime. A couple of days later, the phone would ring, "Lunch, dear." And we'd be back right where we'd always been. I loved him and treasured our friendship so much. And that said, his humour, that amazing humour. Where do you start? How do you scratch the surface? Quirky doesn't even touch it. Black, bent, so off the wall sometimes. I say to him, "Honey, you've now completely lost me. Don't know where we are." And the laugh. The laugh would then ring out. Once heard, never forgotten. I have to say that there was one time I was here after a performance of his Oberon, Midsummer Night's Dream, here at the Ath, and we were upstairs having drinks, and the corridors were crowded with people, people falling out of dressing rooms and being appalling. And something tickled his fancy, and the laugh rang out round the corridors. And a perfectly strange man turned and said to me, "Why do you laugh like that?" And Jamie just looked at him and said, "Because that's the way I laugh." Ask a silly question. There you go. Jamie had the gift of friendship. People might come to him as clients, professional colleagues, many stayed as friends. And Zodiac crab that he was, he could be very tough, very direct, stubborn, had a will of iron. But once he was your friend, you also got to know his unfailing kindness, his compassion, and a sensitivity that just knew if you were in trouble, if you needed anything of him, and he would just quietly be there. Mind you, he also had no qualms whatsoever about simply telling yourself to pull yourself together and get over it, dear, if that was all that was needed. He could be just the best company ever. I'd be away for long stretches in the course of our very long friendship, but we always came back together at the same point where we'd left off. Our friendship never suffered from distance, and I treasured it. Nolene Brown shares, "When I first approached James Laurie about becoming my agent, I'm pretty sure he told me that his books were full. After the shock of rejection wore off, Sue Greaves, Jamie's longtime friend and partner, and I managed to wear him down, and we had a wonderful friendship and a working relationship for many years. I have a lot to thank James for, as he dealt with my contracts even while he was first experiencing illness that he knew would never leave him. James spoke of his illness as if it was a slight inconvenience. I'm sure the oncologists who treated him adored him for his positive outlook. He loved living in Cairns, even though it's a hell of a long way from Melbourne, and was so proud of his new gigs, told me about my bedroom that I never got to see. Our Jamie, he worked hard for us. He played hard with us. And wherever he saw any need, any wrong, he fought it. He fought it hard, fierce and brave. And he fought for himself with truly inspirational courage. A man of unshakable integrity. A man of quality. And now, here's a personal message from Jamie, and a look back at some aspects of his life. If you're not around blowing your own trumpet, just may as well have someone else to blow it for you, preferably with an orchestra. The look. The look. Jamie loved so many things about the world of arts and literature, words and language, writers, poets, storytellers. The author, Robert Louis Stevenson, was a friend of his great-grandfather, and Jamie loved his writings. Please welcome Vanessa Downing with one of Jamie's favourite authors.
Not so much a memorial as an Stedford. When I was sick and lay abed, I had 2 pillows at my head, and all my toys beside me lay to keep me happy all the day. And sometimes for an hour or so, I watched my leaden soldiers go with different uniforms and drills among the bedclothes through the hills, and sometimes sent my ships in fleets all up and down the sheets, or brought my trees and houses out and planted cities all about. I was the giant, great and still, that sits upon the pillow hill and sees before him dale and plain, the pleasant land of counterpane.
Ah, yes. The wardrobe of looks. According to circumstances, you know. So eloquent. You certainly got the message. And someone with a lot of insight into our dear friend's infinite variety. Please welcome Jamie's brother, Ross.
Thanks, Babs. Good afternoon and welcome to James's, as he called it, jovial concert of reflection, which is really the coming together of his 2 families. Many of you said that you heard a lot about us, but we heard a lot about many of you. And for a small fee, I can tell you what he said later. 41 years ago, on my first trip to Melbourne, I came and saw James in The Perfectionist by David Williamson in this theatre. And to be back here, standing on the same stage that he performed on, does send shivers down my spine a little bit. He was very good. It was a very good production. Julie Hamilton, Alex Scott, Frank Wilson and Mary Ward were in the production. It was in September 1982. He was a Nordic babysitter, if you know the play, which was a great opportunity for him to be funny, and he always seemed to be quite hysterical when I saw him in such roles. Afterwards we went out and drank a great ocean of alcohol, which was his way, and at some point we ended up somehow at home, I don't remember, and he came back the next day and did it all again. I'd just like to thank Babs for her efforts in organising this show. And send a cheerio out to friends in the US, Sydney, who can't be here, and the West and elsewhere. There's been a lot of goodwill towards James, and if those people aren't here, they're definitely here in spirit, and we greatly appreciate we appreciate their and your friendship with our dear brother. It seems unfair that he's not here. I expect him to be coming in any minute, but if he was, I wouldn't be talking to you because he'd take over the microphone. And I'm not going to have you grandstanding, Rosa, is exactly what he would say. So, bad luck, James, I am. He had individually tailored his relationships to all of his family, and I know he did the same to all of his friends. So you always knew he was there. He was your confidant, your best friend. All of the big things that happened in my life, he was part of, and it's the same for Susan Jock. He was a great support. He was always interested. He was endlessly proud. And of course, he leaves quite a gap, a hole. His love mattered, and we miss him terribly, and I know that you do too. He's organised this gig down to the wire, as Babs said. In fact, I think Babs might have got hold of my script. I'll be talking to her about that later on. I might have to do some Babs impersonations just to get it back. My words come under the title Family Reflection 1, about humour and eccentricity, which just about sums it up, doesn't it? I did say, you're leaving yourself wide open, James. And he said, Rother, no. Don't even think about it. Okay. Of course, as Babs has said, and as you all know, he was very good company, he was very entertaining, he was hysterically funny, he was a very good impersonator, especially of our father. 2 days before he died, he got himself out of bed and did an impersonation of Dad, which was hysterical. He spent his last weeks entertaining the hospital staff, who all grew very attached to him because he was not like other patients. He wasn't going to be a patient, as you know. I'll never be a patient. I'm not going to have you all round me going, oh. That wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to wear hospital attire. He wore t-shirts, underpants and trousers in bed. He did his own washing in the bathroom. Don't bring me anything. I'm not going to be a patient, as he had tubes and things coming out of him all over the place. As you know, James knew how to work a crowd, and when the hospital staff came in and the oncologists and associated people, they'd say, well, how are you feeling? And he'd say, well, I think last night it was probably about the liver, although the kidneys, and he'd take them right through what was happening in his entire body for about 20 minutes and a couple of jokes, and then he'd say, so that's my sermon for today. If you've got nothing to add, then thanks for coming in. And mostly they looked at each other and said, yeah, we think that's about it. And so out they'd go. His comedy there was very black, which made it funnier. But he was in a tough situation, and he made adjustments to cope with the changing situation. And like many of you, we almost never saw him vulnerable, which I think was his great gift, that he didn't want people to be upset. So he toughed it out. And as sick as he was, and the medical staff did have to say to him, you have to understand, you're very ill. He wasn't going to have a bar of it. He toughed it out. He travelled, he saw people, he had everyone up to visit him. He cooked, he wouldn't let you do anything. Chronically stubborn, as you know. Chronically stubborn. He was obsessed with tying up loose ends, etc. Occasionally the staff would come in and ask the inevitable question of those who are in hospital, how would you describe your stools, James? Oh, I don't know. Today, I don't know, snake, wombat. Colour, oh, I don't know, caramel, haystack. He decided that he'd book himself into a crematorium, the cheapest he could find. He said, I got a deal. So while we were there, there was a phone call. Now, Mr. Laurie, is this booking for you? Yes, it is. Well, hopefully we won't be seeing you anytime soon, the woman on the phone joked, to which she replied, oh no, darling, you keep those coals a-burning. She laughed hysterically and then she went, oh, I'm terribly sorry. It's tacky, isn't it? He was always entertaining and performing from a very young age. And at school, in the house concerts, because he was at boarding school, the three of us were there together under sufferance, he impersonated the school matron, who had lent him her tunic and her sister's hat, and he sang the hit of the time, which was the Lord's Prayer. And she was quite buxom, so he stuffed his tunic out and he had this sort of dance going. It's fantastic. And with great pride, I thought, there is no one in this school as silly as my brother. And he won a prize. And she presented it to him. I'm apparently supposed to discuss his eccentricities, and Babs has certainly started on, mentioned one of them, his laugh. It's tempting to impersonate it, but in honour of his memory, I'll refrain on this occasion. You don't need me to, you know what it sounded like. On one occasion, I had an exhibition in Canberra, and James and a few friends came along. He came to nearly all my shows. And we were in a room having some drinks after the show, and the bathroom was down the corridor. So I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, the party was over. James was in the bed across the room, fast asleep. The lights were out. Oh no, that's a shame. So I got undressed, I got into bed, and I could just hear faintly downstairs this That sounds like James. And I looked at the fellow in the bed across the room, and I'd never seen him in my life. So I got out of there as fast as I could, and I went downstairs and said, you won't just believe what happened to me. And then, of course, there was Summertime. Summertime, which he sang with great gusto, or any other Gershwin or Rodgers and Hammerstein song. The arms outstretched, the serious look when you saw the picture of him singing to Suze, who looked like she was doing it hard, in that sort of Perry Como, Bryn Terfel, Bob Down sort of thing that he had going. It left one feeling astonished, bewildered, embarrassed, amused, and as a friend here today said, you think he thought he was good? I think he did. I heard it sung at the piano bar at the Aubrey Hotel in Sydney and the piano bar in London Soho. And he always gave it his best shot. As he did in life. He was a beautiful man, James. It was a great privilege. He was a great elder brother. He was a great friend. And what else can I say? Thank you.
You may well laugh. This is James's final humiliation for me. To help me, Trevor Jones. Yes.
Now I get it.
You get it now. Right. Thank you, Jock. My best man in every sense of the word. When James informed me that I would be doing a little number at his concert. It was the same day that he told me he was being cremated, but he couched it in the words that, "I'm going to be badly burnt." And I said, "Well, isn't radiation finished?" And he said, "No, they don't muck about with you in the crematorium." And he said, "Now, you won't be pulling out one of those tired old numbers you do, Phil. You'll have to be doing some homework for this one." So, this is it. I'll give it a go. Mark Twain actually said that the two most important days of one's life are the day that you are born and the day you find out why. And this character in the film, before he does this song, confesses that he wasn't a born fool, it was something he had to work very hard at. When I was a lad, I was gloomily sad as I was on the day I was born. When other babes giggled and gurgled and wiggled, I proudly was loudly forlorn. My friends and my family looked at me clammily, thought there was something amiss. When others found various antics hilarious, all I could manage was this, ha ha, or this, or this. My father, he shouted, he needs to be clouted, his teeth on a reef, I'll hand him. My mother, she cried as she rushed to my side, "You're a brute and you don't understand him." So they sent for a witch with a terrible twitch to ask how my future impressed her. She took one look at me and cried, "He? What else could he be but a jester? A jester? A jester? A funny old thing, a jester? No butcher, no baker, no candlestick maker, and me with a look of a fine undertaker impressed her as a jester. But where could I learn any comical turn? It was not on a book on the shelf. No teacher to take me and mold me and make me a funny man, fool or an elf. But I'm proud to recall that in no time at all, with no other recourses but my own resources, with firm application and determination, I made a fool of myself. I found a bow and arrow and I learned to shoot. I found a little horn and I learned to toot. Now I can shoot and toot. Ain't I cute? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I started to travel to try to unravel my mind to find a new chance. When I got to Spain, it was suddenly plain that the field that appealed was the dance. The Spanish were clannish, but I wouldn't vanish. I learnt every step that they planned. The first step of all isn't hard to recall, for the first step of all is to stand and stand. And stand. And stand. I was battered, abused, but the king was amused, and before his siesta he made me his jester. And I found out soon that to be a buffoon is a serious thing as a rule. For a jester's chief employment is to kill himself for your enjoyment. And a jester unemployed is nobody's fool. Thank you, Trevor.
Mr. Corst, wondrous, and Trevor Jones at the piano. Jamie wore a lot of hats, including that one, and they were frequently piled one on top of the other. So to hear more about all of the wonderful, wonderful things that our darling boy accomplished, please welcome his sister, Suze. To follow Philip,
That's a bit hard, I have to say. Okay, it's a very big honour for me to speak with you today about our dear Jamie. I know exactly what my topic is. I know everything about this concert. Jamie has been in my head and my heart an enormous amount since 7th August. But today he has been very much in my mind, checking in on me, making sure I'm going to follow instructions, and that won't come to any surprise to any of you. My topic is life choices. So here we go. Anyway, I'm at least going to try and give you a little bit of light about the Jamie that we all loved. In the last few weeks before he passed away, we discussed his concert at length, and so I'm rather well versed in every piece of the music and made it clear to Jamie that I was going to listen to it before so I could desensitise. So, James, Jamie, Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Jamie. As a family, we loved him so very much. We were all incredibly proud of his achievements and how he managed his life, and particularly recently, how he managed his illness. He was held close in the hearts of our family friends in Walker, and some of them join us here today, which I know he would find very touching. He was kind, funny, fun, and never dull, and we all looked forward to having time in his company. Whenever he came to Walker, to Jock and Lynn's family, or to Ross and Miff's family, everyone just had a whale of a time. Jamie was just funny, but he cared deeply about the people he got to see and touch base with. He was also a man of principle and took responsibilities towards the care of family members very seriously, no matter the inconvenience or the circumstances he found himself in. And while sick with cancer, he still did so much for our mother's only sister, who was 90, early or 94, and had some issues that needed addressing, and Jamie would still stump up for her. Being the older brother, though, sometimes worked in his favour. Our father was a prolific recorder of our family life, and I was, recently watching some film. I've got all the Super 8 films now on CD. And I came across one which was a Saturday morning ritual in our family. So in freezing Walker, on Saturday mornings we would go to town. But to go to town we had to wash the car. So everyone would be out there in this footage. We've all got our flannelette pyjamas on and our gumboots, and there's a lot of hose warfare going on. I'm doing not much with a sponge. But Jamie, as the older brother in this bit of footage, is ensconced inside the car doing interior detailing. Jamie and I were the very best of friends. We were partners in DIY crime, soft furnishings, repurposing, retail therapy, putting the world to rights and the occasional cocktail hour. One particular retail therapy moment I remember is Jamie thought he needed to get modern with his music. So we went to a record shop at that time on Oxford Street, and he came out with Hootie and the Blowfish. And I was like, what? And he goes, well, I need to get with it and to move on. When I was a teenager and Jamie was a man of the world in his early 20s, he would often come to my rescue, sorting some sort of emotional chaos out. He would dust me down and read me the riot act about my choices. It's your decision and move on, no one else can do it for you. We kept Jamie busy on our wedding duties in our family. He was Jock and Lynn's best man, did a wonderful speech, and he also did a beautiful speech at Ross and Miff's wedding. And Ken and I asked him if he would be our MC. He was asked in an Indian restaurant in Potts Point, and he loved his own gag that he thought we were asking him to pass the mild curry. In turn, he was honoured to be asked to be godfather to our son Laurie, who has enjoyed James's friendship, guidance and humour for the time he has had him. Jamie's choices in life started early, and borrowing from a NIDA program in the final year, Jamie's biog referred to the pivotal moment in his life when he performed in Oliver in the parish hall in Walker, with, as he stated, a memorable run of one night. Jamie was always fearless in his decision-making, and to some may have seemed rather impulsive. But brave was the person who wanted to challenge him on those decisions. Jamie's choice to move to Queensland caught some off guard. Why would you really choose to move away from your friends, the family, the cities, even for a part of each year? But Jamie was always of the view, well, if it doesn't work out, I pack up, sell up, move south. It's no big drama, and it's no one else's problem. As it was, after the difficult time of COVID, it did work out, and he was extremely happy in Cairns and made some very special and meaningful friendships within his building. Jamie believed very strongly that we're all in charge of our lives and our choices. It's not up to anyone else but ourselves to set our course, and change is part of that. He was not great around indecisiveness or procrastination. Just get on with it. I was very fortunate to spend the months of November and December and the month of July with him. But for this to work, we always had rules laid down. He was always in the driving seat and always in control. But I'm very pleased to report that something I will refer to as TBEWS had the ability to cut that control off at the knees. He got out of the car in Cairns and he stopped immediately and stared at me and said, "We're going to get in here because I've got to match some paint very quickly." I averted his gaze and nodded profusely and said, "I understand, I know, I get it, I know you're not feeling too good today." We got back in the car with 2 oversized terracotta plant pots and a bird bath. Who knew we needed one? And yes, we got some boring paint. Now, doesn't that feel better, James? And he burst out laughing. TBEWS, the bunning effect with Suze. I've been reflecting on Jamie's bequest, his desire for a safe harbour for those in need in the industry he loved. But if we really think about it, Jamie's actually provided a safe harbour for his family, and I'm sure for his friends, who are his other family, always. It's been taking the form, for that safe harbour, of offering some sound judgment, wise counsel, and he steadied all our ships, enabling us all to plot our own course in life, making our decisions just a little bit clearer. Jamie had choices in how he would handle his illness, and he chose a path of pragmatism, seeing it through a realistic lens, and he normalised it. He worked on this every day and managed it very well on his terms. And if you ever started to discuss it with him, he'd go, "Well, I can't be going down that rabbit hole," and so you would move on. But he wanted people to treat him normally, see him normally. He would talk to his tumour and make it behave, and he would live a normal life as best he could. As Ross said, he was never a patient, but importantly, he was never a victim. He never looked in the mirror and said, "I don't deserve this." He always took ownership for the fact that it was his time and it was his illness. And a friend, basically from my Hong Kong family, summed Jamie up perfectly. We only met him once, but he was immediately funny and thoughtful with a keen interest in other people. And Jamie, during his time in hospital, also showed that incredible trait. He was interested in all the staff who cared for him. He wanted to see them. He asked them how they were, which sort of cut them off a little bit. But he was always incredibly thoughtful of everyone around him. It's rare to be in a cancer ward, I have to say, where you walk down past the room Jamie was in and all you could hear was guffaws of peals of laughter from Ross and I at things he was saying. He was extraordinary. And that was the choice he made about how he was going to live out his days. So in closing, may I quote Penelope Wilton from a scene in Afterlife, which I find just sums up so much about my darling brother Jamie. "Happiness is amazing. It is so amazing it doesn't matter if it's yours or not. It's that lovely thing. A society grows great when old men, sorry Jamie, plant trees, the shade of which they know they will never sit. Good people do things for other people." And that's at the end, because Jamie is one of the good people. He asked nothing of others, but bestowed kindness and care on us all, with a delightful sprinkle of irreverence, wit and fun. Thank you.
Jamie's next guest, another very dear close friend, Deirdre, is going to share with us another one of Jamie's favourite authors. He read everything, as we know, widely, loved everything. Some things spoke to him particularly, and this is one of those pieces. So please welcome Deirdre.
This is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere, ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference.
Well, I think we all know a lot of people who talk to know you can listen to music and sip the night away with our dear James, watching the dawn come up like thunder over Rushcutters Bay or wherever. So, now a musical interlude with one of Jamie's favourite songs. Please look at the musical stylings of Venables and Balletic with Maestro Trevor Jones at the piano.
It happens. Magic, yeah.
Magic.
Here we are, out of cigarettes, holding hands and yawning. Look how late it gets.
Two lonely people,
Sleepy people.
by dawn's early light, and too much in love to say goodnight.
Honey. Here we are in the cozy chair, picking on a wishbone from the Frigidaire.
Two sleepy people with nothing to say,
And
too much in love
to walk away. Do you remember the nights we used to linger in the hall?
Oh, yeah.
Daddy didn't like you at all.
He broke my heart.
Do you remember the reason why we married in the fall?
Rent this little nest and get a bit of rest.
Never.
Oh, here we are, just about the same.
Foggy little fella.
Gorgeous looking dame. Two sleepy people,
by
sun's early light,
and too much in love to say goodnight. I don't know why Daddy didn't like you, Bruce.
Your father was a psychopath that carried a gun.
Oh, that'll be it. You know it runs in the family.
Watch out.
Yeah. He could be dangerous.
To wrap this little nest and get a bit of rest.
Here we are, feeling just the same.
Foggy little fella,
Drowsy little dame, two sleepy people.
by dawn's early light.
Hey,
Do you think we said goodbye to Jamie, Bruce?
I think we did, love.
Mhm. And too much in love to say
Good night.
good night.
Hello. I'm here now to represent my wife, Judy Nunn, and I can tell you she's not in a good state at the moment. She's in Sydney and she got an ear infection a few days ago and it's just got worse. And the doctor said, look, there's no way you can fly to Melbourne in a fit. And we had to jump on her and say, you're not going. She still wanted to come and risked a lot of danger to herself. And so I'm down here to do it for her. She adored James. She adored him. And the fact that she couldn't be here is pretty tragic because I know how talented she is and how clever, and she's a creature of the theatre like many of you here. She's since she was a kid, and she lives and breathes this atmosphere that you're in at the moment. It's part of her, and were she to be here to do this, I've got something she wrote, but that would only be an inspiration for her. She would really, really, really entertain you, and she's incredible on stage. She just let her go and away she goes. She's an utter show-off. Anyway, I can only read what she sent, which will be a slim shadow of what you would have got had she been here. I see from the program that I'm to talk about professional friendships, which I find a difficult topic to interpret. I mean, how can you possibly separate the professional from the friendship when at 3 a.m. your agent is writhing around shirtless on the floor of a nightclub, singing drunkenly and atrociously, "Summertime," and we've all heard it, yeah. And what's more, you and he are in the company of the publisher with whom you're currently doing business. I was there too. Fortunately, the agent and the publisher are both good friends, and the publisher also happened to be legless. It was a bloody nightmare, I can tell you. And then, alternatively, you have the time when said agent is negotiating a complicated deal requiring the publishing director of Penguin Random House Australia, no less, to seek permission from the boss of its parent company in America. A really big deal indeed. Endless to and froing that would drive any publishing boss mad. At the end of the exercise, however, said publishing director declares he has never before negotiated with an agent as honest and gentlemanly and downright honourable as one James Laurie. Such was the contradictory nature of our James, a versatile chappie who was great fun while also being highly astute. I recall, as a perfect example of this duality, a trip to Vanuatu some years back, 4 of us, Judy Nunn and Bruce Venables, with best mates Sue Greaves and James Laurie. The very day we arrived, upon getting to the rather seedy but divinely atmospheric beachside resort that so typifies Port Vila, we unpacked our duty-free grog, didn't bother with anything else. We pulled our chairs up around the table that sat in the open outside our respective bungalows, overlooking the coral sands, and got stuck into the gin. Cold tonic and ice delivered from the bar. 2 bottles later, of gin that is, everyone's having hammer and tongs, trying to outdo the other one, and James gave one of those barks. That, oh Christ. He was wonderful. You know the kind, she says, that signals what a good time we're having. And he said, isn't it wonderful how each one of us finds ourselves so terribly interesting? And we shared a laugh and off we went again. At some stage, I once again found a hole in the discourse and leapt in with a generational story of a grand old feud in my family, brother against brother-in-law, 2 houses torn asunder, at the end of which Jamie declared with absolute wonderment, but that actually was interesting. I first met James Laurie during a Melbourne Theatre Company production of The Winter's Tale, which was performed in this very theatre, the good old Ath, in 1983. I was playing Paulina and he was playing Florizel. And the end of each evening's performance saw Jamie and me, together with Dougie Hedge, seated on the dressing room floor, leaning up against the walls, telling sad stories of the death of kings, a cask of red wine between us well into the wee hours. Then, halfway through the season, there came a change. John Sumner insisted that the casting of James Laurie as Nick in the MTC's forthcoming production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf to be directed by Roger Hodgman. So Jamie was taken out of The Winter's Tale and Stephen Tandy replaced him. Stephen Tandy became our Florizel for the rest of the run. Several weeks later, upon the opening night of the Virginia Woolf production, I delivered a card to be posted up on the Russell Street Theatre notice board, wishing the cast all the best. The only trouble is, in the card, I addressed my well wishes to all 4 cast members, Bruce Miles, Robin Nevin, Genevieve Picot and Stephen Tandy. How I did that, I have no idea. I was far too young in those days to be suffering a senior's moment. I didn't even know I'd done it until Jamie himself pointed it out. I was aghast, utterly humiliated, and felt duty-bound to make an abject apology, not only to him but to the rest of the cast. Jamie told me not to bother. Don't worry, Jude, they all thought you were joking. They think you're an absolute hoot. I don't know if anyone ever found out, but I remain shamefaced about that to this very day. James and I started our relationship as fellow actors, after which we became agent and actor, before moving on to becoming literary agent and author. All this over a period of 40 years. And I honestly do not recall one angry word shared between us. I do, however, recall a great deal of success and many, many laughs along the way. I'd like to say in closing, shockingly ill though Jamie had been for quite some time, although many didn't know this fact, simply because he didn't want it known, he remained at the helm until the very end. In the legacy he bequeathed to the industry that he'd served so well the whole of his working life. James Laurie Senior Assistance Fund now forms a substantial arm of the Actors Benevolent Fund of New South Wales, offering help to actors at retirement age. Apparently James made a personal request of the ABF, which I didn't know at the time, that I should be the fund's patron. I've proudly accepted the offer and the honour he's bestowed upon me in doing so. James Laurie was, and will always remain in my memory, one of my dearest personal friends. But even in death, he's ensured we stay professionally linked, which I suppose qualifies me to speak along the lines of professional friendships. Here's to you, Jamie Love.
Greetings all, I'm Roger Oakley. I also met James on these very boards 40 years ago, and he became a really important person in my life. He's probably still one of my greatest friends, and I miss him a lot. And he's given me my last gig, and these are the words that he wanted us to hear. And so I'm going to do them for you now with, well, not with happiness, but with pride. This is Alfred Lord Tennyson, Crossing the Bar. Sunset, an evening star, and one clear call for me. And may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea. But such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that, the dark. And may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out our bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar.
Thank you, Roger. Jamie, as we know, loved the sea. Even the Manly Ferry was something that he enjoyed. The strip of ocean, wide and the horizon beckoning between the heads, restored him. It was refreshing. And something else that did him a great deal of good was always being with those people that he loved. So now please welcome someone who always did everyone a lot of good. Please welcome Geraldine Turner.
Not good at this. Okay, I've known Jamie since he came out of NIDA. I know that a lot of people go further back than that with him. We were both at Shanahan Management then, when he was an actor, and the heady days of Shanahan's, when Bill was in charge, those wonderful years. Later on in my career, of course, Jamie became my agent, and he was wonderful, adorable. He was always adorable. And then later, just before he became ill, actually, he got me a book deal when I wrote my memoir during COVID. And in fact, he worked with me on the book because I'd never written a book. And I would write a few chapters and send them off to Jamie, and he'd send back the most perfect notes, honestly. They were just wonderful. So that when he got me the deal and I started working with an editor, in fact, the editor didn't do much because Jamie had been the editor the whole way through the writing period. So I'm so pleased to be here today, and I'll love Jamie until my last breath. He wanted me to sing this little ditty, and I can see why. It's kind of about Jamie in a way, about all of us, hopefully, in the industry. It was written, it's actually from a musical called Seesaw, music by Cy Coleman, lyrics by Dorothy Fields. This is It's Not Where You Start. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not how you go, it's how you land. 100 to 1 sparks, they'll call you a klutz. Can outrun the favorite, all you need is the guts. Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop. You always were, Jamie. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're gonna finish on top. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's not how you go, it's how you land. 1,000 to 1 shots, they call you a klutz. Can outrun the champion, all you need is the guts. Your final return will not diminish, and you can be the cream of the crop. It's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you're gonna finish on top. Love you, Jamie. Thank you to Trevor Jones for this afternoon.
Finish on top, he did. We have so many people to thank today, sharing with us Jamie's party. The management of the Athenaeum, Barry, Glenn and Greg. And our thanks to them for so warmly welcoming us back to this very dear space. Production manager Mick Bell, really good on scrambled egg, I think. Thank you so much, Mick. And Trevor, sorting out the sound for us. The wonderful Peter on the desk there, such a smooth operator. Thank you, Peter. Thanks to Tim Spanos, who's filming this party today. Richard Fitzgerald for the editing of the photographs. Peter Fitzgerald for the lovely graphics. David Serlick, Melbourne Theatre Company, for the photo archives of Virginia Woolf. Our fabulous cast. Our fabulous cast. Deirdre, Jennifer, Vanessa, and Jodie, Philip, and Roger. Lovely work. And the fabulous Trevor Jones, who really could play the Lithuanian thing. Thank you, Trevor. And to Jamie's family, to Jock and Lynn, Susan, Ken, Ross and Niff, Caroline, Alexander and Angus, Isabella and Eugenie. Thank you for sharing your dear brother and uncle with us today. And now, a few seconds for us to sit quietly with our friend and think your own thoughts and another Jamie's choice.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere that go sailing somewhere beyond the sea. She's there watching for me. If I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms I'd go sailing. It's far beyond the star, it's near beyond the moon. I know beyond a doubt my heart will lead me there soon. Beyond the shore we'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing.
Ladies and gentlemen, James Laurie.
Thank you everyone. I'm Jock. As you went through the family photos, I'm the big fat-headed fella sitting beside him with the little chair. And unfortunately I haven't shrunk since, so this is a bit of a break for Jamie. He'll be very surprised when I'm standing up here talking. Basically I'm the soft one in the family. And I don't handle these things very well. Go through all of that. I just wanted to get up and say that this bloke has been a tremendous, an absolutely tremendous brother to us, uncle to our kids, great uncle to our grandkids. He has been so much support to all of us all through our lives, and I don't think anyone realises how he could sit down and have two completely separate families. He could have his family, which we all are, which he sat with us and treasured us all the way through, supported us in his own independent style. And then he's got everybody else sitting in this room, his second family. And to think that he could sit down there through all of that period of time and treat us all as if we were his best mate, he's just an incredible talent. And he did that, and he managed to do that. And to hear everybody talk today about him just gives us so much pride. And we thank you all very much for being part of his life. I don't think you really understand how important it was to him and how important it was to us that he was comfortable in that environment and he was really happy to go forward. We were so proud of the things that he'd achieved in his life, as a family so proud. I think my father was actually a bit jealous, because he was the real actor in the family. Did more productions than anybody else, so they'd outdo summertime with each other after about 6 or 7 bottles of wine. Jamie was a pretty famous, very famous drinker, and I could handle a bit when I was a young fellow. I can't handle it anymore, so I had to put the B team, my 2 boys, on it. And it soon sorted out who the good drinkers and who the good drinkers weren't, because I tell you what, he was a very seasoned campaigner, as most of you know, and you've spoken about that at length today. But the great thing was that that's when all of his theatrical talent came out to a certain extent. A bit of grog really livened him up, and in a pretty conservative environment like a family Christmas only a few years ago, actually, 4 or 5 bottles of wine, and Jamie thought he'd be a dog. So he was crawling around on the floor in the sunroom, quite a few of you have been in the home, in the sunroom, piddling on all the chairs just to keep people entertained. It's the sort of thing he did. He could stay, he could hang, he could keep people entertained. He knew who was up, he knew who was down, he knew how to manage them, he knew how to separately manage them all differently, all their personalities. Well, his siblings are all very different, yet he treated us all as one. He treated us all separately, he managed us all separately. He supported all of our partners, all of our wives and husbands, and he's very much supported the family. Tremendous ability to be able to do that. And I think what a lot of people did see was they saw his outer strength, but they didn't see all the things that were inside him, some of the things that he dealt with that nobody knew about him. And his cancer was a very good example of keeping those things inside and not telling anybody about them. He liked to deal with them himself, he liked to be in control. And the things and areas of vulnerability where he did get a bit crooked through his lifetime, nobody really knew about them. He kept them very private, he managed them well, but he did always, like all of us sitting in this room, have a level of vulnerability. And it was just fascinating growing up with he. I've probably known him longer than anybody else in the room from the day I was born. We're always, it's a good photo. God, this is a pain in the ass. Bloody hurts. Anyway, we're always good mates. And you've got to understand, I'm a farmer, a straight, simple farmer. Jamie was this really extroverted character to a certain extent that had all of his flamboyance. And to watch him develop and grow was absolutely fantastic. He was the best man at my wedding as he was with the Cross. I can't remember, we got married in a town called Bendenere where Lynn was, and there were half a dozen or more girls. There wasn't many girls in the town, there was about half a dozen left there. And of course that was just before he'd done Midnight Spares, or actually just after he'd done Midnight Spares. And they all of a sudden got wind that this movie star was moving into town about their best man at a wedding. My God, didn't that create some commotion? They had all the televisions, they found that. Then of course, Jamie didn't back off either, he stuck the chest out and started around the place as you'd expect, so he absolutely loved the attention. He was a real showman, as I say, real showman, but he had this level of vulnerability that we all do that not a lot of people saw. I think that's the thing that I saw him through all my period was the strengths, saw the odd weakness that we all have, as I say, but we're very proud of him, and I can tell you I was thrilled on behalf of the family to be able to go to the Benevolent Fund and have his donation announced. Absolutely thrilled with that. The family's thrilled with that. To think that he's prepared to sit down and invest in the industry that gave him a living that he absolutely loved. We are absolutely over the moon that he could do that and that he did it, and fully support the family, and we really do love the way he did that. So, sorry James, broke the mould. Bugger the script. I don't speak at any of these things because I don't handle it well, but he'll be pissed off I broke the script, but he'll be majorly surprised that I actually got up and did it. So,
Thanks very much.
And now, the bar is open, the party goes on. Thank you all for sharing everything that we all felt for our darling boy. It's been a swell party. Here they've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.